The last thing Shen Yu remembered was the taste of bitter tea. Snow fell gently outside the palace windows while plum blossoms swayed in the winter wind. Inside the Jade Phoenix Palace, the young imperial consort sat alone, enjoying what should have been an ordinary evening. At 22 years old, Shen Yu was known throughout the empire for his beauty and kindness. Unlike many people in the imperial harem, he never sought power or status. He treated servants kindly, avoided conflicts, and preferred a peaceful life. Unfortunately, the imperial palace was not a place where kindness guaranteed safety. As Shen Yu lifted his teacup and took a sip, something immediately felt wrong. The bitterness was unusual. Within moments, a burning pain spread through his chest. His fingers lost strength and the porcelain cup slipped from his grasp, shattering against the floor. Realization struck him almost instantly. The tea had been poisoned. As he struggled to breathe, the palace doors slowly opened. Another consort stepped inside with a cold smile on her face. Shen Yu didn't need an explanation. The look in her eyes told him everything. She had arranged it. "Did you really think kindness could protect you here?" she asked. Shen Yu could barely speak. His vision was already beginning to blur. He had never harmed anyone. He had never schemed against others, yet none of that mattered. In the palace, innocence was often the easiest thing to destroy. As the poison spread through his body, his thoughts became slower. The room grew darker. His final wish was painfully simple. If there was another life waiting for him, he wanted freedom. Then everything disappeared. When Shen Yu opened his eyes again, he expected heaven, the underworld, or perhaps nothing at all. Instead, he found himself staring at bright lights and unfamiliar buildings. A loud horn blared nearby. Before he could understand what was happening, something struck him, sending him stumbling backward. Strange metal vehicles rushed past him on a wide road. Towering buildings stretched into the sky. Colorful lights flashed everywhere. The entire world seemed impossible. Had he somehow awakened in another realm? A deep male voice interrupted his panic. "Are you hurt?" Shen Yu looked up and found himself staring at a tall, handsome stranger dressed entirely in black. The man's sharp features and calm expression immediately gave the impression of someone powerful. "You rode an iron beast into me," Shen Yu accused. The stranger blinked. "My car." "The black metal beast." The man rubbed his forehead. This was going to be a complicated conversation. His name was Lu Jingyan, a 39-year-old CEO who managed one of China's largest technology companies. Normally, he handled billion-dollar negotiations without difficulty. Yet at that moment, he found himself completely confused by a beautiful young man who genuinely appeared to believe he had stepped out of ancient history. After taking Shen Yu to the hospital, the situation became even stranger. The young man had no identification, no phone, and no record of who he was. More importantly, every reaction he had seemed genuine. When a nurse entered carrying a tablet, Shen Yu nearly jumped off the bed. "What is that glowing mirror?" The nurse looked at Lu Jingyan. Lu Jingyan looked at the ceiling. Nobody knew how to answer that question. As the hours passed, it became obvious that Shen Yu had nowhere to go. Whether he truly believed he came from ancient China or not, he was clearly lost and alone. When Lu Jingyan prepared to leave, Shen Yu hesitated before speaking. "I know nobody here," he admitted quietly. "I have no money, I have nowhere to go." For a brief moment, Lu Jingyan saw something familiar in his eyes. Loneliness. 3 years earlier, after losing his fiancé to illness, he had worn that same expression himself. The memory made his chest tighten. After a long silence, he sighed. "Come with me." Shen Yu's face immediately brightened with relief. It was a simple smile, but something about it felt surprisingly warm. The next morning, Shen Yu encountered his first elevator. The experience did not go well. He stared suspiciously at the metal doors and firmly declared that the machine was cursed. "It swallows people." "It doesn't swallow people," Lu Jingyan replied. "It swallowed a woman 5 minutes ago." "It transported a woman." "How do you know she survived?" After briefly attempting to climb 42 flights of stairs, Shen Yu reluctantly decided that perhaps the elevator was the lesser evil. The moment the doors closed, he grabbed Lu Jingyan's arm and refused to let go. When the elevator began moving, his eyes widened. "We're flying." "No, we're not." We absolutely are. Lu Jingyan eventually stopped arguing. Some battles simply weren't worth fighting. The mansion itself was even more overwhelming. Everything inside felt modern, elegant, and expensive, yet despite its beauty, Shen Yu noticed something else immediately. The house felt empty. Not physically empty. Emotionally empty. There were no signs of laughter or warmth. Only silence. While exploring, he eventually found a framed photograph. In it, a smiling man stood beside Lu Jingyan. The happiness on the CEO's face was unmistakable. When Shen Yu asked who he was, Lu Jingyan's expression changed. My fiancé, he answered quietly. He passed away 3 years ago. Shen Yu immediately understood. The loneliness filling this mansion suddenly made sense. That evening, another unexpected challenge appeared. A robot vacuum. The small machine emerged from beneath a sofa and began moving across the floor. Shen Yu stared at it in horror. The robot moved toward him. He moved backward. The robot continued forward. He grabbed a decorative pillow and pointed it like a weapon. Stay back. The robot ignored him completely and bumped into his foot. Shen Yu yelped. At that exact moment, Lu Jingyan walked into the room and found him preparing to defend himself against a vacuum cleaner. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Then, to Shen Yu's complete surprise, Lu Jingyan laughed. It wasn't a polite laugh. It wasn't forced. It was genuine. The sound seemed foreign even to the CEO himself. For the first time in years, he looked relaxed. The smile transformed his entire face. Shen Yu couldn't stop staring. A few days later, the robot vacuum officially received a name. Jing. According to Shen Yu, every member of the household deserved a proper name. Even robot vacuums. When Lu Jingyan pointed out how ridiculous that sounded, Jing immediately bumped into his shoe. Shen Yu looked delighted. You see, he likes you. Life inside the mansion slowly settled into a routine. Shen Yu learned new things every day. Some experiences were successful. Others were not. His first attempt at cooking ended with smoke filling the entire kitchen and multiple alarms going off throughout the house. When Lu Jingyan rushed downstairs expecting an emergency, he found Shen Yu standing in front of a burnt pot with a deeply offended expression. I challenged the stove, he explained. And the stove won. For reasons Lu Jingyan couldn't explain, he found himself laughing again. The house no longer felt as quiet as it once had. And for the first time in years, he realized he didn't mind. Over the next few weeks, Shen Yu began adapting to modern life much faster than anyone expected. At first, even the simplest things confused him. Automatic doors made him suspicious. Escalators convinced him that modern people had somehow trained moving staircases. He remained deeply uncomfortable around elevators, although he reluctantly accepted that they probably weren't cursed. Probably. The biggest challenge arrived when Lu Jingyan handed him a smartphone. The young consort held the device carefully in both hands as if it were a priceless treasure. What is it? He asked. It's a phone. It glows. Yes. It has no buttons. Most phones don't anymore. Shen Yu stared at the screen for a long moment. It looks expensive. It is. Should I bow before using it? Lu Jingyan nearly choked on his coffee. The lessons began immediately. Unfortunately, teaching Shen Yu how to use a smartphone proved far more difficult than expected. On the first day, he accidentally called emergency services while trying to adjust the volume. On the second day, he discovered the voice assistant and spent almost an hour thanking it for answering his questions. By the third day, he had become convinced that emojis were a secret language modern people used to communicate hidden emotions. When Lu Jingyan explained that the crying laughing face simply meant something was funny, Shen Yu looked genuinely disappointed. I thought it represented spiritual enlightenment. It does not. That seems like a wasted opportunity. Despite the confusion, Shen Yu learned quickly. Within a week, he was browsing videos online. Within 2 weeks, he was completely obsessed. One evening, Lu Jingyan returned home after a long day of meetings and discovered Shen Yu sitting cross-legged on the couch watching cat videos. The young consort didn't even notice him enter the room. A kitten fell into a cardboard box. Shen Yu burst out laughing. Another cat attempted to jump onto a shelf and immediately fell. He laughed even harder. For nearly 6 hours, he watched nothing except cats. Lu Jingyan stood silently in the doorway for a moment. The sound of genuine laughter filled the mansion. For years, the house had been painfully quiet. Now it felt alive. And strangely enough, he found himself looking forward to coming home. Everything changed the day Shen Yu discovered online shopping. At first, it seemed harmless. He simply wanted a new pair of slippers. That was all. One pair. A perfectly reasonable purchase. Lu Jingyan showed him how to use a shopping app and assumed that was the end of it. It was not. 3 days later, dozens of delivery trucks began arriving at the mansion. The security staff looked exhausted. The delivery drivers looked confused. The entrance hall disappeared beneath mountains of cardboard boxes. When Lu Jingyan returned home that evening, he stared at the growing pile in disbelief. What happened? Shen Yu smiled proudly. There was a sale. That explanation did not help. As they unpacked the boxes, Lu Jingyan discovered that Shen Yu had purchased an impressive collection of completely unnecessary items. There were decorative blankets, novelty mugs, plush animals, kitchen gadgets, decorative pillows, a sword-shaped umbrella, 3 separate rice cookers, and for reasons nobody could understand, 20 identical pairs of slippers. Why do you need 20 pairs? Lu Jingyan asked. They were discounted. You only have 2 feet. Exactly, imagine how expensive it would be if I had 20 feet. The CEO stared at him. The logic was impossible to argue with because it made absolutely no sense. Among all his purchases, one quickly became Shen Yu's favorite. A giant panda plushie nearly as large as he was. Naturally, it received a name within minutes. Bao Bao. The giant stuffed panda soon occupied a permanent place on the living room couch. Whenever Lu Jingyan entered the room, he often found Shen Yu sitting beside it, casually carrying on conversations as though Bao Bao were an active participant. Surprisingly, life became much more entertaining that way. As Shen Yu continued adapting to modern life, he also became determined to improve his cooking skills. His first attempt had nearly destroyed the kitchen. The second attempt wasn't much better. However, unlike ancient kitchens, modern technology offered unlimited tutorials. Soon, Shen Yu spent hours watching cooking videos. He practiced every day. He failed repeatedly. Then he tried again. Little by little, he improved. One rainy evening, Lu Jingyan returned home completely exhausted. The company had been dealing with a difficult acquisition. He had spent nearly 12 hours in meetings. His head hurt. His shoulders ached. All he wanted was a quiet evening. The moment he opened the front door, however, something unexpected greeted him. The smell of freshly cooked food. Warm, comforting homemade food. For a brief second, he simply stood there. The sensation felt strangely unfamiliar. It had been years since anyone had cooked for him. Years since someone had been waiting for him to come home. When he entered the dining room, he found a beautifully prepared meal arranged on the table. Steam rose gently from several dishes. The presentation was careful and elegant. Shen Yu emerged from the kitchen with flour on his cheek and an excited smile on his face. "You're back." The simple greeting struck Lu Jingyan harder than expected. "You're back." Nobody had said those words to him in a very long time. For a moment he couldn't answer. Then he finally sat down and tasted the food. The first dish was surprisingly good. The second was even better. By the third bite, he was genuinely impressed. Shen Yu watched him nervously. "Well, it's delicious." The smile that appeared on Shen Yu's face instantly made all his hard work worthwhile. That evening they shared dinner together. Not as host and guest. Not as strangers. Just 2 people enjoying each other's company. The conversation flowed naturally. They laughed. They teased each other. And for the first time in years, Lu Jingyan forgot what loneliness felt like. A few days later, Shen Yu accidentally wandered into Lu Jingyan's study. The room was filled with books, documents, and photographs. Many of the pictures featured the same man he had seen before. The late fiancé. As Shen Yu quietly examined one of the photographs, Lu Jingyan appeared in the doorway. For a moment neither spoke. Then the CEO walked over and picked up one of the frames. He hated rainy weather, he said unexpectedly. The memory brought a small smile to his face. He carried umbrellas everywhere, even when the forecast said it would be sunny. Shen Yu listened quietly. As the conversation continued, Lu Jingyan began sharing stories he hadn't spoken aloud in years. The man in the photographs wasn't just a memory. He had been a real person. Someone funny. Someone kind. Someone deeply loved. Eventually, the conversation turned more serious. He was sick for a long time, Lu Jingyan admitted. His voice grew quieter. I had money, resources, connections. His fingers tightened slightly around the frame. But I couldn't save him. The words carried years of guilt. Years of pain. Years of helplessness. Shen Yu understood immediately. He knew what it felt like to lose something precious. He knew what it felt like to have no control over fate. Without thinking, he gently placed his hand over Lu Jingyan's. You loved him, Shen Yu said softly. Yes. And he loved you. Yes. Then you gave him something many people never receive. Lu Jingyan looked at him. Happiness. The room fell silent. You stayed beside him, Shen Yu continued. You loved him until the end, that matters. For several moments neither spoke. Then Lu Jingyan felt something unusual. The guilt he'd carried for years seemed just a little lighter. Not gone, but lighter. And for the first time, he wondered if healing might actually be possible. Neither man realized it yet, but something important had already begun to grow between them. Something neither expected. And something that would eventually change both their lives forever. By the third month of living together, Shen Yu had adapted to modern life far better than anyone could have imagined. At least that was true most of the time. He still occasionally spoke to household appliances. He still thanked automatic doors when they opened for him. And he still believed Jing the robot vacuum understood every word he said. But compared to the young man who had arrived terrified of elevators and smartphones, his progress was remarkable. Unfortunately, his growing confidence led directly to a brand new disaster. One that involved the entire internet. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. Lu Jingyan was at work while Shen Yu stayed home. After finishing his chores and feeding his growing online shopping addiction, he began exploring social media applications. Most of the features made sense. Some did not. One particular button caught his attention. Curious, he pressed it. Several seconds later, a livestream began. Shen Yu had absolutely no idea. At first, only a handful of people joined. Then dozens. Then hundreds. Then thousands. The comments appeared so quickly that he couldn't even read them. People were immediately captivated by the beautiful young man speaking with perfect ancient manners while sitting in an expensive modern mansion. One viewer asked whether he was a historical drama actor. Another asked if he was filming a television show. Shen Yu honestly answered every question. No, I was poisoned and woke up here. The comments exploded. Everyone assumed he was joking. They found him hilarious. One viewer asked what had surprised him most about modern life. Shen Yu thought carefully before answering. The glowing toilet. The livestream instantly went viral. By the time Lu Jingyan returned home that evening, millions of people had watched clips from the broadcast. Shen Yu had accidentally become an internet celebrity. The CEO discovered this after opening his phone and finding dozens of messages from friends asking if he was secretly living with a historical prince. When he entered the mansion, Shen Yu immediately ran over. Jingyan. The familiar greeting made him smile. What happened? I think the internet likes me. That turned out to be a massive understatement. Over the next few days, Shen Yu's popularity continued growing. Fan pages appeared. Short videos circulated everywhere. People adored his honesty, his confusion about modern life, and his naturally charming personality. One viral clip showed him arguing with Jing after the robot vacuum bumped into a chair. Another featured him explaining why online shopping was humanity's greatest invention. To Shen Yu's surprise, modern people found him endlessly entertaining. To Lu Jingyan's surprise, this bothered him far more than it should have. At first he didn't understand why. Then the comments began appearing. Thousands of them. People complimented Shen Yu's appearance. People confessed their love. People jokingly proposed marriage. One particularly enthusiastic celebrity publicly invited him to dinner. The moment Lu Jingyan saw that message, he felt an unfamiliar irritation. He stared at the screen far longer than necessary. The feeling was strange, uncomfortable, and impossible to ignore. That evening, Shen Yu excitedly showed him the invitation. "This actor wants to meet me." Lu Jingyan looked at the message, then at Shen Yu, then back at the message. "You should decline." Shen Yu blinked. "Why? You don't know him." The answer came out much faster than intended. Shen Yu considered it for a moment before nodding. "That's true." Then he immediately declined the invitation. The irritation vanished instantly. That was the moment Lu Jingyan finally understood what was happening. He was jealous. The realization should have been impossible. After all, he was 39 years old. A successful businessman. A rational adult. And yet here he was feeling possessive because strangers online thought Shen Yu was attractive. The situation was ridiculous. Unfortunately, it was also completely real. Meanwhile, Shen Yu was experiencing a problem of his own. The more time he spent with Lu Jingyan, the harder it became to hide his feelings. What had begun as gratitude had slowly become admiration. Admiration had become affection. And affection had become something much deeper. Every day he found new reasons to care. The way Lu Jingyan quietly remembered his favorite foods. The way he always made sure Shen Yu felt safe. The way he listened without judgment. The way he never treated him like a burden. The way his serious expression softened whenever he smiled. Without realizing it, Shen Yu had fallen completely in love. The realization arrived one evening during a thunderstorm. Rain battered the mansion windows, while lightning illuminated the city skyline. Shen Yu stood near the living room window watching the storm. Unexpectedly, memories from his previous life surfaced. The palace. The betrayal. The poison. The loneliness. For the first time in months, he felt homesick. Not for the palace itself, but for the life he had lost. The people who once knew him. The version of himself that no longer existed. A few minutes later, Lu Jingyan joined him. He carried 2 cups of tea and handed one over without a word. Together they stood quietly watching the rain. Eventually Shen Yu spoke. "Do you think anyone remembers me?" Lu Jingyan understood immediately. "You mean your old life?" Shen Yu nodded. The CEO thought for a moment before answering. "Yes." The certainty in his voice surprised him. "If someone kind disappeared from my life, I would remember them." The answer brought a small smile to Shen Yu's face. Before he could respond, a loud crack of thunder shook the house. Instinctively, Shen Yu jumped. Unfortunately, he jumped directly into Lu Jingyan's arms. Both men froze. Neither had expected the sudden embrace. For a brief moment, the world seemed to disappear. The rain. The thunder. The city lights. Everything faded into the background. Shen Yu could hear the steady rhythm of Lu Jingyan's heartbeat. Warm arms surrounded him. Strong. Safe. Comforting. His face immediately turned red. When he finally stepped back, neither knew what to say. The awkwardness that followed was almost unbearable. Both suddenly found the floor extremely interesting. Neither made eye contact. Neither slept particularly well that night. Over the following week, things became even more complicated. Because both men were now painfully aware of each other. Simple conversations felt different. Shared meals felt different. Even sitting together on the couch felt different. One afternoon, Shen Yu found himself staring at Lu Jingyan while the CEO worked from home. The older man sat at the dining table reviewing documents. Sunlight streamed through the windows. His reading glasses rested low on his nose. A faint shadow of stubble covered his jaw. There were small traces of silver beginning to appear near his temples. The signs of age only made him more attractive. More mature. More dependable. More impossible to forget. Shen Yu realized he had been staring for nearly a minute when Lu Jingyan finally looked up. Is something wrong? The young consort immediately looked away. No. The answer was far too quick. Lu Jingyan smiled. Shen Yu nearly forgot how to breathe. That night, while sitting on the couch beside Bao Bao, Shen Yu finally admitted the truth to himself. He loved Lu Jingyan. Not as a friend. Not as someone who had helped him. Not as a roommate. He loved him completely. The realization should have made him happy. Instead, it made him nervous. Because there was still one obstacle standing between them. The past. Shen Yu knew how deeply Lu Jingyan had loved his fiancé. He respected that love. He admired it. But part of him feared he could never compare. What if he was only filling an empty space? What if Lu Jingyan's heart still belonged entirely to someone else? Across the mansion, Lu Jingyan was struggling with similar thoughts. Standing alone in his study, he looked at an old photograph of his late fiancé. For years, the image had only brought pain. Now something else accompanied it. Hope. And strangely enough, that hope made him feel guilty. Because another face had begun appearing in his thoughts. A smiling young man from another time. A man who filled his home with laughter. Who named robot vacuums. Who bought far too many things online. Who somehow made every day brighter. As Lu Jingyan looked at the photograph, he quietly asked a question he had been avoiding for weeks. Was it possible to love again? Deep down, he already knew the answer. The problem was finding the courage to accept it. Neither man realized it yet, but everything was about to change. Because someone from Lu Jingyan's past was about to arrive. Someone who believed no one could ever take the place of the man who had died. And their arrival would force both of them to confront feelings they could no longer hide. Life continued peacefully for several weeks after the thunderstorm. At least on the surface. Neither Shen Yu nor Lu Jingyan mentioned what had happened that night. They continued sharing meals, watching television together, and teasing each other about everyday things. Yet both of them could feel the difference. The atmosphere between them had changed. Every accidental touch lingered a little longer. Every smile felt more meaningful. Every glance carried unspoken emotions. The problem was that neither knew how to take the next step. As it turned out, life had no intention of letting them avoid the issue forever. The disruption arrived on a quiet Monday morning. Shen Yu was arranging flowers in the living room when the doorbell rang. Expecting a delivery package, he opened the door without hesitation. Instead, he found a woman standing outside. She was elegant, well-dressed, and looked to be in her early 30s. The moment her eyes landed on Shen Yu, her expression tightened almost imperceptibly. You must be Shen Yu. The young consort nodded politely. Yes. The woman stepped inside. My name is Su Lion. The name immediately sounded familiar. After a brief pause, Shen Yu remembered where he had heard it before. She was the older sister of Lu Jingyan's late fiancé. The atmosphere instantly became uncomfortable. For a few moments, neither spoke. Su Lion studied him carefully. Not with hostility exactly, but with caution, as though she were trying to understand something she couldn't quite accept. Finally, she sighed. I understand why Jingyan likes you. The statement should have sounded complimentary. Instead, it felt strangely painful. Before Shen Yu could respond, she continued. My brother loved him very much. I know. More than anything. Shen Yu nodded quietly. Everything he had learned about Lu Jingyan's past had convinced him of that. The love between those two men had been real. Deep. Beautiful. The kind of love anyone would be lucky to experience. Su Lion lowered her gaze. Then she said the words Shen Yu had secretly feared for months. I don't want you replacing him. The sentence struck harder than expected. For a moment, Shen Yu couldn't speak. Not because he was angry. Not because he was offended. But because those words touched a fear he had never shared with anyone. The fear that perhaps she was right. The fear that maybe he had entered Lu Jingyan's life simply because someone else had left it. Su Lion wasn't trying to be cruel. That much was obvious. She was grieving. Protective. still carrying the pain of losing her brother. But even so, her words hurt. A lot. Because Shen Yu had never wanted to replace anyone. He simply loved someone. After Su Lion left, the mansion felt quieter than usual. When Lu Jingyan returned home that evening, he immediately noticed something was wrong. Shen Yu greeted him politely. Too politely. The warmth that normally filled the house seemed dimmer. At dinner, the young consort barely spoke. He smiled when necessary, answered questions when asked. But the brightness that normally surrounded him was gone. Lu Jingyan noticed every second of it. Over the next few days, the distance between them continued growing. Not dramatically. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But enough for him to feel it. The change bothered him more than he expected. The house felt emptier. Lonelier. As though sunlight had disappeared from the rooms. Eventually, he couldn't ignore it any longer. One evening he found Shen Yu sitting alone in the garden. The young man was staring at the stars. Lost in thought. Lu Jingyan sat beside him. For several minutes they simply enjoyed the quiet night air. Then Shen Yu spoke. Do you think people can love more than once? The question immediately revealed everything. Lu Jingyan understood exactly what had happened. Exactly what Shen Yu was worried about. And exactly why he had been pulling away. The CEO looked up at the night sky. Then answered honestly. Yes. Shen Yu glanced toward him. Really? Of course. His voice was calm. Certainly. Loving someone doesn't erase the people who came before them. The younger man listened carefully. It doesn't replace those memories. Lu Jingyan smiled softly. It simply means your heart finds room to grow. For a moment neither spoke. The words helped. But they weren't enough. Because the truth remained trapped inside both of them. Neither had actually confessed. Neither had said what truly mattered. The situation finally exploded several days later. Su Lion returned unexpectedly. This time, however, Lu Jingyan was home. The moment she saw them together, frustration flashed across her face. You've changed, she said. I know. The answer surprised everyone, including Lu Jingyan himself. Su Lion stared. You shouldn't. Why not? My brother's. He died. The room fell silent. The words sounded harsh. But there was no cruelty behind them. Only pain. Years of pain. Lu Jingyan took a slow breath. My feelings for him haven't disappeared. Su Lion's eyes filled with tears. Then why are you doing this? Because life didn't end when he died. The room remained completely silent. For years, Lu Jingyan had avoided saying those words aloud. Now he couldn't stop. I will always love him. Shen Yu felt his heart sink. Even though he understood. Even though he respected it. The words still hurt. Then Lu Jingyan continued. But I love Shen Yu too. Everything stopped. No one moved. No one spoke. The confession had escaped before he could stop it. Yet once spoken, the truth felt strangely liberating. For months he had been carrying those feelings alone. Now they finally existed in the open. Su Lion stared at him. Then at Shen Yu. Then back again. Slowly, understanding appeared on her face. This wasn't replacement. It never had been. The man standing beside Lu Jingyan wasn't competing with her brother. He was simply someone new. Someone who had brought happiness back into a house filled with grief. Eventually Su Lion left. Not because all her pain disappeared, but because she finally understood there was nothing to fight against. After the front door closed, an awkward silence settled over the mansion. Two men remained standing in the living room. Both overwhelmed. Both embarrassed. Both completely unsure what to do next. Finally Shen Yu spoke. You love me. A nervous laugh escaped Lu Jingyan. That wasn't how I planned to confess. The younger man smiled despite himself. So you do? Yes. The answer came immediately. Without hesitation. Without doubt. Yes, I do. The words shattered the last wall around Shen Yu's heart. His eyes immediately filled with tears. Happy tears. The kind that came from finally receiving something you never believed you deserved. After everything he had endured, someone loved him. Not because of his appearance. Not because of his status. Not because of obligation, but because he was simply Shen Yu. Unfortunately, seeing him cry immediately made Lu Jingyan panic. Why are you crying? I'm happy. Then why are there tears? Because I'm happy. That explanation makes no sense. It makes perfect sense. Despite himself, Lu Jingyan started laughing. A moment later, Shen Yu joined him. The tension that had built up for months finally disappeared. Slowly, the CEO stepped closer. His hand gently brushed against Shen Yu's cheek. The young consort immediately stopped laughing. Neither looked away. Neither wanted to. Shen Yu. Yes. I love you. The sincerity in his voice nearly brought fresh tears. This time, however, Shen Yu smiled. I love you too. The confession felt natural. Simple. Honest. Like something that had been waiting to happen for a very long time. A moment later, Lu Jingyan leaned forward. Their first kiss was gentle. Unhurried. Filled with affection rather than urgency. It felt less like a beginning and more like coming home. Months passed after that. The mansion transformed completely. Photographs filled the walls. Plants appeared in every room. Laughter echoed through the halls. Even Su Lion gradually accepted the relationship after seeing how happy they made each other. Most importantly, Lu Jingyan smiled more often. Much more often. Meanwhile, Shen Yu continued causing minor chaos wherever he went. His online shopping habit remained completely out of control. Jingjing still received daily conversations. Bao Bao the giant panda continued occupying an entire section of the couch. Some things simply refused to change. And honestly, neither of them wanted them to. One evening, nearly a year after Shen Yu arrived in modern China, the couple stood together on the balcony overlooking the city. The light stretched endlessly into the distance. The world felt enormous. Full of possibilities. Lu Jingyan wrapped his arms around Shen Yu from behind. Are you happy? He asked quietly. The younger man smiled. Thinking back to the palace. The poison. The fear. The loneliness. If someone had told that dying imperial consort that his future would look like this, he never would have believed it. A second life. A warm home. A family. A love that crossed centuries. Most importantly, a future worth looking forward to. Shen Yu leaned comfortably against the man he loved. Then he smiled toward the city lights. Very happy. And for the first time in both their lives, neither of them felt alone. Together, they stepped forward into a future built not on grief or regret, but on healing, laughter, and love. The kind of love that survives time itself.